Welcome to Engaged Company Culture, a podcast directed at you, helping you to stop the employee exodus in your organization. This podcast has 3 different types of episodes. First, you have tips, tricks, observations, stories, research from me, Dr. Catherine Weiberg of Profitable Alignment. Second, interviews with other consultants, other coaches who are here to serve you so you can learn other tips and tricks to engaging your employees, to stop the employee exodus, to consciously create and continue a company culture where people want to be and where they encourage other people to come to work and to become your customers. Third, I interview other business leaders who have engaged company cultures and want to share their stories. You might learn from them how they have applied principles of company culture to increase their employee retention, increase their profits, increase their productivity, and increase everyone's job satisfaction. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Thank you for again joining us for Engaged Company Culture, brought to you by Profitable Alignment. I am Dr. Catherine, your host. Today's guest is Rebecca Heydon of More is Possible Coaching. Rebecca is an ex-finance executive turned fulfillment coach. She leveraged her years of constantly creating a sense of purpose within her corporate teams into partnering with successful leaders to create a life of purpose so they can feel like themselves again. She has her MBA and her CPA. Her experience includes leading teams of more than 20 people at a Fortune 50 company, international work, and decades of pursuing what was in front of her and seemingly more enjoyable than what others had, instead of what she wanted. She believes culture is the key to real, meaningful, and lasting success. Rebecca and I have had so much fun talking already. Welcome, Rebecca, to Engaged Company Culture.
Thank you. I'm super excited to continue our fun conversation.
Oh, we had so much fun. Please tell us a little bit about how you got where you are from where you started in corporate.
Yeah, so like a lot of kind of type A driven, people pleasing people out there. I was good with numbers. I wanted a job that had an income, right? And I chose finance for that and got into Verizon early on. Did my MBA, my CPA with them, and had a good time. I was good at it. People liked me. I liked them. But I knew I wanted to be in leadership because I had always loved working with people, right? I was team captains, leaders at groups, whatever it was, I loved that. So that's why I was intent on climbing the ladder, because I was looking for that opportunity to be able to do what I wanted with people, develop them the way I wanted. Fortunately or unfortunately, right? Things don't work out the way you think they will, or they're different than our expectations. So as I was climbing the ladder, I realized there was still a lot more finance than I wanted there to be. There was a lot more politics than I really wanted there to be. And so I was starting to get a bit burnt out. I hired my own coach because I realized, even though I said I wanted to do the work to see if this is really what I wanted to be when I grew up, I wasn't doing it, right? Because it was never a priority. So through the experimentation that I did with her, I remembered who I was and that I would have majored in leadership if I could have, and saw that she was kind of making a living doing that. I'm not getting any younger. We don't have any kids, and kind of decided to make a go of it before it became too late. Yeah, that's
you. I am amused at how much your story and my story parallel. When I started in college, I was planning to become a CPA because I enjoyed numbers, but I really, really loved the people. So you and I are so similar. And I remember I wanted to become a leader. I wanted to be a better leader. I wanted to influence people. I wanted to help people. That's when I started recognizing different managerial dynamics and different employee dynamics within the department and within larger divisions and so forth. And I said, I wonder what we could do with that. I love that you talked about you wanted to be with the people and you found yourself working with the teams and helping with the teams. And you now are at a point of this is what you do all of the time. So what do you find most rewarding in the work that you've chosen and cut out for yourself right now?
Yeah. So the key is that right or wrong, right? Coaching isn't all I get to do. I have to do the marketing and the sales and all that other stuff, right? Of running the business. I'm sure, right? You and your listeners can relate to that. So the most magical part is still the coaching. When those clients have those breakthrough moments and it transforms, right? Like how they've been showing up with their direct reports, with their bosses, maybe even with their family. Those are the moments where you're like, yes, this is why I'm doing this.
Absolutely. I am completely on board with that because frankly, I love seeing individuals grasp who they are and then let that filter out. How are they going to change their team? How are they going to change their team at home, their family? How are they going to, as a result of changing themselves and recognizing what they love and what they do, how do they create that alignment? And how does it then filter out to everybody? Like you said, their direct reports, their teams, even moving up the ladder if you're in a hierarchy or looking at your organizational chart. And it can be amazing what people can do with that.
Yes. Who we are and who we be impacts everything. So just because like if one person gets it or shifts, I believe it can have big ripple effects.
Absolutely. So what have you seen in your experiences with culture and how that affects organizations, starting with the one and moving to the many?
So I believe that culture is at the heart of like everything, right? So it impacts how people show up. It impacts how innovative you are. It impacts how quickly you move to do things. The leaders I've had who were transparent and in maybe not the weeds with us, right? But they were down in it with us and supporting us while we were in it. Those are the teams that we wanted to be on. Those were the teams other people wanted to be on. And that was what I had tried to create as a leader as well. And a lot of, people had commented on it, which is how I thought there might be something there as well. Because people are human and they give so much time to work that it's that engagement. And it's amazing what one person who's on board with an idea can totally turn the tides, right? It takes like one, maybe two people to bounce off each other, and we'd be working on projects and people would be down about how long it had already taken and whatever. And two of us would be excited about, ooh, but we're going to try and do this to make it better, or innovate this process as we move forward with it. And then the others would get on board.
I love it. It comes back to more is possible. It's exactly why, in my mind, you would have created the name More is Possible Coaching, because that's exactly what you're helping people see, that more is possible from what we've experienced. Let's challenge what is our current status quo. Let's challenge what we currently understand. Let's reframe everything that we've looked at and rewrite our present, because we can redesign our future. More is always possible.
Yes. So often we get stuck in our histories and our past stories and everything, right? As adults, as people who have lived. but that just because that's the way it has been doesn't mean that's the way it should be or has to be.
Exactly. Exactly. That you're singing my song. I absolutely love it. So what advice would you give to upcoming leaders and the rising generation about employee engagement and helping people see that more is possible?
So time with your employees. I can't remember exactly what book it was in that I had read. It might have been Fierce Conversations when I was really young, right, and getting into it. And they had said, schedule one-on-one time, schedule team meetings, and do make canceling not the norm. And I can't tell you the payoff that I experienced from that. I had bosses who didn't do that and it impacted it and they probably got along with it. But I experienced huge benefits to that because people would keep you updated on stuff that they weren't going to in email, they weren't going to on the phone in front of other people, right? But in that steady, repetitive one-on-one time, that's where it would kind of come out. So I think that's probably number one. And the second piece would be, it is coaching. I didn't know it at the time, but like the asking of the questions, right? And the curiosity about people. I think it gets understated how much asking about people really makes them feel valued and a part of something. Don't just tell people how to do it, right? Like let them figure it out and ask the questions to draw it out of them if you can. I think those are probably the two biggest. And even for you, right? If you're a leader and you're looking for your employer and your boss, like ask them questions, right? Like ask for what it is you're looking for, because be the change you want to see, right? Like don't settle for what isn't what you want, what isn't a good fit, what isn't a good culture. Voice it, because people will only change or start to think about changing if they know they can't continue the way it goes.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you. In addition to Fierce Conversations, 12-Week Year by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington also talks about doing one-on-ones. It's part of their accountability prospect. Yes, write down 12-Week Year, also uncommon accountability, allowing people to be accountable to themselves, to have ownership. That's what Brian Moran and Michael Lennington talk about in 12-Week Year. Because of 12-Week Year, I now put everything that I do with clients into 12-week segments because it's just that powerful. But it comes back to what you were saying. Take the one-on-one time, block it out, and keep it sacred. That's part of what they say in time blocking is you want to connect with your team. In connecting with your team, you have to have a time that they know, whether it's open door or a set time for individuals or a combination. You have that block of time where they know where you'll be. They can count on it, and you are taking ownership of that relationship so they can take ownership of their goals, both personal and professional. It ties in exactly with what you were saying with Fierce Conversations. I completely agree. What you're doing is engaging everybody in the company. I love also that you talked about people need to see we're not doing it the same way anymore. It's no longer allowed to do the same thing anymore. People are naturally resistant to change, even if they want it. But if you create the environment that supports the change, which is from another book that I've been reading, and all of his research. So Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. Another super fun one. Talks about creating the environment for success. So that changing your environment, changing your conversations, exactly like you were saying, make the time and help them see we can't do it the same way, and we're not going to do it the same way. This is what we've put in place. This is the time we're taking because frankly, more is possible. I'm enjoying how easily your company name just fits in,
So good. I love it. I was just talking about this in my book club change because we were reading Brene Brown's
Oh, yes.
Rising Strong, and one of the gals in the group is a change management leader. And it's funny how she was like, so much of what people think change management is like reducing the negative of change, right? And that it's not going to be hard. And kind of, but change is going to be hard. It doesn't matter if it's the best thing ever, if it's exactly what you want, right? Starting my own business, like change is hard. It's like, how do you go through that and keep people moving through that? I love it, love it, love it, love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I call it an uncomfortable comfort zone. No
Yes,
matter how uncomfortable it is, it's where you're comfortable being. It's what you're accustomed to.
yes.
So, for example, lately I have recently released 60 pounds of excess weight. And yes, it has been amazing, but the change has been hard. No matter how much I wanted it, the change has been hard until it's getting to the point of it becoming automatic. So now some of my food cravings are starting to go away. What a blessing. But it's the same idea. It's like I had this vision of what I wanted to be and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up for myself. And I had to change my environment. I had to change the way I looked at things. I had to reframe what brought me here. It's the same thing in organizations.
Yeah.
My doctor of management is organizational development and change. I love talking about how to help people change and enjoy the journey,
Right.
and organizations change and enjoy the journey, because hard doesn't mean bad.
Right.
Hard just means challenging.
Yep.
It's an opportunity to say, ooh, look at how cool this can be. I have another friend, I'm going to use her phrase, how great can it get?
Yes. Oh, I might steal that.
Yes. So in that case, I'll give proper attribution. It's from Nicole Magic.
Okay.
Majik. Nicole Magic. How great can it get?
Yeah. Love
It's
that.
another reframe. She's one of my sheroes.
Love that.
So as we're talking about change, as we're talking about personal change and corporate change and company culture change, what advice would you give to be heard well in the midst of change or in seeking it even?
So I would go back to asking questions. I know recently Adam Grant has helped make this possible with his Thinking Again or Think Again book, but even before that, right? I think when you're asking questions and you're coming from curiosity, it can release the pressure you have on yourself, right? Because it's not like you have to voice some revolutionary thought, right? That's going to change the entire thing. It can remove some of that pressure. And it typically will open up people to, oh, what are you asking about, right? Why are you asking that? So that they are more open to it and they're even looking at it differently, right, than they probably were. So I think though that's the biggest thing. And like to speak up, if you are at a place and you struggle, I was an introvert, right? I didn't like to speak up, but I did things. I talked to people on the side. I talked to my boss beforehand, right? I did dry runs of whatever it was. Like I tried to prepare and then I felt comfortable. If you're doing all of that and you still are that fearful, my guess is it's not your book. I would you need to be in a place where you feel comfortable speaking up and try and change it and try and do what you can. And if you can't, you are being called somewhere else would be I don't know if that's like.
I love the way you put that. You are being called to somewhere else. I like that because you're recognizing that the culture you're in is not healthy for you. And you're recognizing that there is a culture out there that is healthy for you. So it is the process of showing interest in other people by asking questions, the process of asking questions for understanding, the process of, as you said, talking one-on-one to people instead of in front of a big group, the process of finding out what you can, and then recognizing, is this where I fit? Am I properly aligned? Am I aligned with the organization? Is the organization aligned with me? Is the organization aligned with itself? How can I be profitable to me and to the company? And maybe it is to invite myself to go somewhere else. Maybe I am called to be in a different place. You were called to become a coach. It wasn't necessarily that your environment was toxic, but that you discovered that's not what you loved most. Even though you were good at it, it's not what you loved most. Sometimes you take what you are good at and you apply it somewhere different because it feeds into what you love most. It also comes back to leaders who talk to their employees.
Yes.
Find out, are they a good fit? What needs to happen? Is this the right place for you? Maybe you need a different job in the organization. Maybe we need to allow you and encourage you to find your joy somewhere else. Not necessarily saying, oh my garbage, what a horrible fit you are, but instead saying, maybe there's something you would enjoy more and we might not be able to provide it. Maybe you can help us find a replacement for you, and maybe you can help us onboard while you look for what you want next. Again, recognizing the strengths of your employees and that they have options, but you want them to feel important, just like you were doing. You want people to feel recognized. We're more than our job descriptions. We're more than a set of skills.
I think that's what culture is all about, right? It's all about understanding who your people are and kind of what to do with that. So many people have had jobs created because they were great employees, great at whatever it was that they were really great at, but it didn't fit there. And so they had opportunities created for them. Or like you said, right, they onboarded people and then their company helped them find another job or whatever it is. And even with speaking up, like we were talking about, right? I think one of the best leaders I ever had was somebody who asked me, right, like, why are you not speaking up? Or like called me forward in a meeting, not pointing out that I was being quiet, but like, oh, Rebecca, like, did you have an opinion? I thought you had like messaged somebody, right? Or you have notes on your page, right? Like, is there anything we missed? But in a nice, like, kind of inclusive, calling me forward way. Leadership, it makes a big difference, the difference, right?
Honestly, because introverts are not always shy, but they do process things differently and they do present things differently from the way extroverts do. And sometimes a big meeting is not the place for an introvert to speak up. But just like you pointed out, introverts have important things to say. So the fact that your manager recognized Rebecca has some fantastic things to say, and she's not going to just volunteer it here, but we want to hear what she has to say, made a big difference.
It builds the
Recognizing
confidence.
communication styles. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to talk over you there.
No.
Sorry.
Me neither. Sorry.
It is all good. So who is your favorite leader and why?
Yeah. So my favorite like real person leader is somebody I worked with for years at Verizon where I worked. Anybody who knows me will probably be able to guess who it was. Senior leader. He wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but he was my cup of tea. He had a high bar, but he made you feel like he had that high bar because he knew that you were capable of it. Right. And he pulled or tried to pull out that greatness out of you and push you where you thought you wouldn't be able to do. And that's what I had tried to do with my employees because I saw how much it motivated me. Right. And I think the other couple of things about him, I mean, that was the big right drive of working for somebody like that. He didn't micromanage. I mean, he was super smart and he wanted to know all the details and all the weeds and whatever it was, but he wasn't micromanaging most of the time. Right? It was, you go off and you do this, and I'm going to ask you the really detailed questions, but I don't necessarily need to know, how it's all built, which was great. And then one of the other things which I found a little bit rare was, he wanted, because he was super smart and about the details, he wanted to talk to the person closest to the work. So he was all the way up here and he was calling, right, my guy or me when it was me, right? The lowest person actually in the Excel sheet, right? Like typing in the numbers or pulling the data. He was calling them and asking them the questions.
Yay.
And he didn't get on their case if he knew that they were doing something off, right? He drew the line. He knew his position and his power and his authority and how that might go. And he would go through it. He would ask them questions, right? Point out some things. And then he would call me and say, we got to be doing this, right? Or take a look here, right? I don't think that's going well, or whatever it was, but didn't use his position of power really in a negative way towards people who, were a lot lower level than he was.
I don't know him, but he just joined in my list of favorites. I had a manager very similar to that 20 plus years ago. I was working in a mortgage department at the time. I got hired at an entry-level position, and because my passion lay elsewhere within, she created a position for me, just like you said, because I was just naturally doing some of the things to support people. But the most amazing thing about her was not only was she encouraging me to pursue what I wanted to do with it and then help the department. It wasn't, I need to get out of this department. It was, ooh, how can I help my department? And this is what I can do. And she got all excited about it. But she also had experience in every role in that department. So if we got to crunch time near the end of the month, because that was always crunch time, she could jump into any role and would jump into any role and help out. And her supervisor was the chief financial officer. He worked very similarly to the gentleman you just described. Very much, this is what we want to understand. Sometimes he would get in the weeds. Usually he would leave it to her to be in the weeds and he would ask her questions, but he knew people by name. He actually cared.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. He also had a high standard. She had a high standard. They never belittled. They always encouraged, and they would correct.
Yes.
If there were problems that needed to be fixed, they would be addressed, and they would be addressed in private. They would never be aired in front of everybody. It's okay, we have a couple people who are having challenges with each other. Everybody come into my office. We're going to close the door. We're going to talk.
Yeah.
And she would talk one-on-one and so forth. And she was always smiling. No matter what. Yes. So you can understand that I found her amazing. Yes, she would get stressed.
Yeah.
Yes, she would show her stress, but her door was open and she meant it. And so much like the fellow you described. So he now is right up there with her in my estimation, because he's my ideal type.
And vice versa as well. I've put her up there with him.
Yes, this has been over 20 years and I still think back, and every once in a while I dream in the nighttime that I have gone back to work for her. It's so funny because it's been so long, but she made that positive an impression on me.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, right? That's what you want, that you still think of her that way. That's great. That's amazing.
Yes, it makes me so happy. From this conversation, and I'm having fun, I know we could go for hours upon hours. From this conversation, what do you want listeners and viewers most to remember and take to heart for what they can do?
I think it's probably a little bit of a classic, right? Or a cliche that employees are your greatest asset. That is it. Without our customers, we don't have anything, but also without our employees, we don't have anything. And spending the time with them it's never a waste. And it pays dividends, especially long term. And then hopefully maybe they've been inspired to like try and come from coach and ask questions, and get curious about things, right? How they can change, how others can change. And I think, I always go back to understanding people so that you can treat them the way they want to be treated versus the standard treat people the way you want to be treated is nice and respectful. But I think the second layer of really understanding people so that you can do that, again, pays in dividends.
I have heard the treat people the way they want to be treated called the platinum rule.
Yes.
And I love that. And it comes down everything you said. Understand your people so they know how they want to be treated. Different people have different motivations. Different people have different goals. Different people like to be recognized in different ways. Sometimes it's a big award. Sometimes it's a little thank you note. So, it could be, it's very different, but taking the time, just like you were saying earlier, one-on-one conversations, recognize that more is always possible. Recognize that change doesn't have to hurt, even though it's hard. It can be so empowering and strengthening to everybody. It engages you, it engages everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm going to put your links in the show notes, but what is the best way for people to reach you so they can really experience more is possible coaching?
It's probably on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. So it's just Rebecca Heydon on LinkedIn, and that's where I share stuff. And if you want to message me about anything, that's where you most easily get a hold of me as well. Email is great, but that's a little long-winded for this. But yeah, LinkedIn for sure.
Put it in the show notes.
Thank you.
Oh, Rebecca, you are fantastic. This has been so much fun for me. Thank you for your time. I hope that our listeners and viewers enjoy it anywhere near as much as you and I have enjoyed it.
Me too.
And have some things that they can apply, because frankly, each one of us can create an engaged company culture. More is possible, and we can create a profitable alignment in everything.
Yes, we can. Thank you so much. I had a blast. I cannot tell. Like you said, we could go on for hours. So much fun.
Thank you, Rebecca. Have a wonderful day, and thank you everybody for listening. Step into your power. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to or viewing today's Engaged Company Culture episode. I hope you have enjoyed the episode. I hope you have learned something and have something that you can apply today to engage your company culture and encourage your employees to enjoy work. Looking forward to Mondays instead of only looking forward to Fridays. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone else you know. Also, like and subscribe to Engaged Company Culture anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you and have a wonderful day.